Wasabi wallet. Unfairly private.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to the show. Glad to see you all here. There's people already piling in. Smash that like button. Give this a share. We are here for another Friday episode of Why Are We Bullish? It's my favorite time of the week, the best way to cap off the week. Why are we bullish? We've got a killer panel here today. We're going to talk about lots of fun stuff. As always, this is done live. Anything can happen. So a quick disclaimer from my good friend Bill.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
Welcome again. Thank you, guys. Give this a share. Let's get a ton of people in here. We've already got like 90 people watching live and we barely just begun. Give us a share, smash like. And as always, I am Ben with the BTC Sessions, and this is your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.
All right, so before we bring in our panel, of course, let's take a look at where we are in the market right now. We're sitting around $54,091 per Bitcoin. That up a little bit from our previous dipping. We did dip down to in and around the 50K range. It was 50,400, something like that we got down to. But we've been coming back up. And we talked a little bit on the show yesterday about some potential reasons for that, but we're going to get into that a little bit more. A few other metrics we want to look at. Sats per dollar. You can pick up 1,849 sats for a single US dollar right now. In terms of, there is 88.88% of all Bitcoin have been mined. And for fees, up a little bit from last show, 72 sats per byte, well, 73 now, will get you into the next block. And if you're willing to wait an hour, around 40 sats per byte will do ya. Quick shout out to sponsors of the show, LEDN.io. You can use this you can use your Bitcoin for a variety of different services here. For me, it tends to be if I need to get my hands on dollars and I don't want to sell my Bitcoin because, taxable event and worried about having to buy back in at a higher price. This has been kind of my go-to. I'm able to deposit, get dollars in my bank account within 24 hours. And when I pay that back, I get back the same amount of Bitcoin. Of course, they've also got their Bitcoin and USDC savings, and they've got their B2X offering, which instantly buys you more Bitcoin with the same loan mechanism. You can check out all of that in the links down below. Up next, of course, we've got the Kobo Vault, one of my regularly used hardware wallets. I love this thing. 100% air gapped, keeping your keys safe and offline. It's all done via QR code. They do have their Bitcoin only firmware, which of course I have installed, secure element, all the good stuff there. And I've been using it a lot with multi-sigs alongside my cold card, which is friggin' awesome. I love the thing. So check it out. Really, really great stuff. For reference, I'm using the Pro. It has the fingerprint scanner and the rechargeable battery. Up next, I do live on Bitcoin. 100%. Well, not 100%. I do get dollars here and there, which I try to dump very quickly. But I do need to live. And one of the ways that I can help myself do that is through Bitrefill. They have just every gift card you can imagine. And just every, they have tons of different countries. If you go for a scroll here, I'm sure your country will be listed. And you can pay via main chain or on Lightning Network if you so choose. And you actually do earn sats back as you shop. So be sure to check them out. And finally, guys, please back up your Bitcoin wallets carefully, whether it is a hot wallet or a cold wallet. Make sure that backup is secure. I've heard some horror stories this year from people that just did not do that. It was on paper, they threw it out, or they got water damage on it and can't see the seed anymore. Things like that. You got to be careful. So one way to do this is to get it on steel with something like the BillFodl over on privacypros.io. Check them out, links below. And with that, let's wrap this up and let's start bringing in our awesome panel here. We've got Will, we've got JM, we've got Keep It Simple, and maybe, just maybe we'll get Guy Swann from Bitcoin Audible. He may be very preoccupied recording something, as sometimes happens. But hey, we've got a killer friggin' panel, guys. Welcome. I'm going to go down the line, and I'm going to let everybody know who you are and I guess what you do, or any other little tidbits that you want to throw in there really quick. So let's jump to Will. Will, can you let everybody know who you are, what you do?
Yeah, sure thing. So, hey guys, I'm somewhat new on the Bitcoin scene. I started getting into Bitcoin maybe around the end of last June. I'm a finance sophomore major at East Carolina University, and basically lately what I've been doing is a lot of like on-chain analytics stuff, just kind of bouncing around with different finance-related kind of things. But yeah, lately I've been focusing on the on-chain stuff.
Awesome. Yes. And I've been retweeting the hell out of you. So thank you for
Appreciate
the
it.
solid content you've been putting out. Let's jump to keep it simple. Dude, let people know who you are, what you do.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I make easy, simple, practical guides to interact with Bitcoin safely, privately, and I'm grateful to be on the show and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Glad to have you, dude. A returning guest as usual. And let's jump to JM. Dude, can you let people know who you are, what you do?
Yeah, well, my name is Jordan. I am a missionary and a church planter living in Uruguay in Latin America. And as far as Bitcoin goes, the thing that I'm most known for is I'm one of the co-authors of a book called Thank God for Bitcoin. And so I wrote that alongside more notable names like Jimmy Song and Robert Breedlove. And so, yeah, thankful to be here. Thanks for the work of all of the guys here.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, I'm super stoked to have you guys all on the panel today. Again, as I said, this is always my favorite part of the week because I get to just sit back and chill and enjoy having some fun time with some solid Bitcoiners here. So this is Why Are We Bullish? And we kind of go by the 3 R's here. So I'm going to start by giving a reason. We're going to riff on that reason, and then we're going to rotate to the next person. So really simple, super casual. I'm going to get us started, and I'm going to do a little screen share here because there's something that has me very bullish as of late. Let me just get my screen going here. It's an image, and it's a tweet that was shared out here. I'll do this. Okay. So this is a tweet shared by Macro Unpuzzled. And it shows all of the options expiries throughout this bull run and kind of what has happened to the price after those expiries. So I'm just going to kind of, because some people may be listening to this on the pod later, if you can't see the image, on the 30th of October last year, we were at 13K when those options expired. By the time of the next expiry, after a significant pullback, we were at 17K. That was November 27th. By the time of the next expiry on December 25th, we were at 23K. By the time of the next expiry, we were at 32K. That was on the 29th of January this year. And by the time of the next expiry on February 26th, it was 44, almost 45K. And in each of those, there's like almost immediately after the expiry or within like days of the expiry, there's significant upside to the price. So we just had a record amount of Bitcoin expire in the on like Deribit, on a ton of different exchanges where there was $6 billion worth of options that just expired today. So that was a record. I believe it was 4 billion was the previous record, I think just from last month, but a massive amount of downside pressure was there up until that expiry. And now that seems to have been lifted. And I mean, we do already see it reflected in the price. We were down, people were worried about us breaking below 50, and it seems to have bounced back up. So, if that trend continues, fantastic, unless you're like waiting to stack. All of us were chatting a little bit before we got started. We're like, if it could just wait maybe like 5 days, a week, if there's some paychecks coming in, wouldn't mind stacking a few more sats. But as I'm sure will be the case in most of my other paychecks, it'll pump just prior to it arriving. But yeah, I don't know. I find this interesting. I've been trying to learn a little bit more about how these options markets operate and everything. But I do think it has some effect, but maybe some of the other panel members will have other thoughts. So I'm going to start tossing it down the line to get any thoughts, if you have anything specific to say about it, or if you just in general feel pretty bullish looking at that chart, you can let me know. Maybe let's go to Will first, because I know you were saying that you had some interesting things that you were noticing there that you wanted to tag on.
Yeah, to be honest, I think you touched on a couple of the things I had to say, but in general, I just wanted to say, like you said, the previous record was at the end of January, and then after January, price went up. I think it was like 98% or 99%. And that previous record was 4 billion. Now we're seeing 6 billion. So that expired today. So it'll be interesting to see what the price entails in the next couple of weeks. Because obviously, it's not going to be something that the second the options expire, you're gonna see the effect of it. It's more going to be in the weeks following. Yeah,
100%. Do you know? Are you super familiar with how the options markets work? Like, have you done a lot of looking into that, or is that?
To be honest. Yeah, to be honest, like I'm not. I know a little bit about it, and I've tried to look into it, but I wouldn't say I'm like a derivative expert enough to give you like an informed opinion about it.
Yeah, like my understanding is the general idea is somebody can sell or buy an option to buy or sell Bitcoin at a specific price at a specific date in the future. So like if one person thinks that Bitcoin is going to drop and another person thinks that Bitcoin's going to go up, they may agree to buy Bitcoin, in the future at a certain price point. Like the ones that just expired, I believe they were saying the max pain point would have been if we had dropped down to 44K. And so that means some people were saying, hey, I'm willing to sell you Bitcoin at 44K at this date in time, and I'm willing to buy Bitcoin from you at this date and time for 44K. And if you're selling that, then you kind of got to make sure that you've hedged yourself there so you don't get screwed. So you got to kind of take both sides of the bet to hedge it out. But it's interesting. I definitely missed some things there, and I don't fully grasp always, but it definitely there's definitely huge price movements in and around this kind of stuff. Kiss, do you have any thoughts on options? Do you just ignore this stuff, or how are you feeling?
No, it's definitely interesting. I've participated in some of this before. With options, there's always an opportunity cost. I guess I'll speak to the individual's perspective, right? There's an opportunity cost because if you have to lock in Bitcoin or lock in fiat in order to buy or sell the option, right? Depending on what side you're on, you have an opportunity cost, whether it's with, cash, right? To be able to buy dips, or whether it's your Bitcoin to be able to do something with it. I'm very curious. I've been thinking about this a lot. There's a lot of talk about how many coins are flying off exchanges, right? All these institutions are self-custodying, and that's why you see this massive exit from institutions, whereas like in 2017, exchanges had a lot higher balances. And I was listening to the Preston Pish's Bitcoin podcast, and he had a guy on 2 episodes ago, and they were talking about the cash and carry, and they were also talking about the
Charles Edwards.
Yes, thank you, Charles Edwards. So they were talking about cash and carry, and then they started talking about another type of carry trade where you take the Bitcoin, let's say you BlockFi it, right? You put 10 collateral, you get back 5 worth, you get like 50% of it, and then you short Bitcoin, right? You do the cash and carry trade. And so I started thinking, and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but how much of this Bitcoin that's flying off of exchanges is then being locked up into this trade? And what happens if we get a 25, 35, whatever the floor is for that liquidation, right? And what does that do? Because I'm ultra uber bullish, but in the interim, right, in the short term, anything can happen. The craziest shit can happen. And so I started thinking about that because that was a vector I hadn't even thought about. And Will, you've written tremendous articles on Bitcoin Magazine. I don't know if you have any kind of nuanced opinion to respond with, or any of you guys do, but I was just thinking about that, and I'm super bullish. But what kind of leveraged effect does that have on downside? Like, because it's leverage, right? And we're getting more leverage than we were, 2017, 2016. So.
Yeah, I can touch in real quick. I'll just want to throw in there. So it's interesting because, right now we kind of have like this feedback loop where the spread between the futures premium and the spot price is continuing to grow as the volatility increases and price increases, and so we're in this contango right now in the market, and as more people step in to do the trade, they're locking up more Bitcoin in escrow, which is almost like a second supply halving, which is accelerating obviously the price because there's less supply to be bought, et cetera, et cetera. But we're in this feedback loop. But what happens when I think this is what you're kind of getting at here, is what happens when it comes back and unravels the other way and we get into, which, to be honest, I don't really understand what the catalyst for that would be. But it's definitely something to think about.
As you finish up that thought, we have the addition of the tardiest member of today's Why Are We Bullish? I'm gonna razz him before he gets in here. The silky smooth voice of Guy Swann is joining the party.
What is up?
What's up, man?
We said 5:30, right? I'm right on time.
No,
Yeah, big time at us.
that's all right. That's all
I'm gonna
right.
blame it on my friends. I had some
You're right.
friends come in from out of town, and I thought they weren't gonna get here till late tonight. And then randomly the doorbell rings, and then we've been talking for like the last 40 minutes. I had no idea what time it was.
You must be on, dude. You must be on Moscow time or something.
That's what it was. I'm on Moscow time. It's 1952 over here.
Yeah, that's right. We'll get to the memes in a moment. I'm excited about that. But let's toss this topic over to JM. Dude, do you have any thoughts about the expiry of all these options and the historic precedent this year, at least, or this bull run for the big runs that we've seen after them?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add on that front. I'll be completely honest with you. What I do see at that is you could just put a slogan like Bitcoin. If you're losing money, you're doing it wrong. I just look at that chart. I'm like, just hold. What? This is not hard. This is not complicated. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's amazing to me that I mean, I guess that's just some people's MO. They want to play those games, and they don't. So it's almost like they don't fully understand what they're dealing with, like the opportunity cost of doing that. I don't get it.
I think one thing just to add in though is that some of these options aren't naked per se. Some of them a lot of them actually are probably just hedging against downside. So they're eliminating some of that downside risk.
Yeah, that's fair. Awesome. And Guy, I don't know if you heard much of it, but basically we're just talking about, I'll bring it up one time just to show you here. One sec. Hold on. I gotta find it on my feed. But I was sharing this earlier. If I can find it here. Oh, there's us. We're live. Inception. Holy crap. It is right here. So basically this is the chart of the options expiries and the runs that we had immediately thereafter, and the dips were just like massively above even when the expiry happened. So anyways, I don't know. Have you been looking much into these options expiries, Guy?
I have not actually. Bitcoin loves to just take a rally and then breathe for a minute. And I don't know exactly the ins and outs of what the liquidity for these options are, or I really haven't thought in depth about it. I'm just so long Bitcoin, like just in general, that it just seems like, okay, so it moves this way for 15 days. I don't like it. It's like, is that a time scale I really care about, you know? But it would probably, I'm sure there's something very interesting to uncover there. And probably worth an episode on the show, but no, I haven't really dug into it.
All right, fair enough. That's fair. You heard it here first from Guy Swann himself. Guys, stop screwing with that stuff. Stay calm, stack sats, be humble, all the good things. We're going to get to our next reason for being bullish here. But before we do that, of course, also people are calling out. They're seeing chairs. There are chairs. There are scammers in the room. Why is everybody I'm sorry, guys. I don't know.
This is actually just like a short cushioned wall behind me, and I'm squatting. So
I'm in a deep squat at all times. That's all.
Right.
There's
the
like
quads are massive.
Yeah.
Giga
Quad 4.
That's it means when your quads are 4 times the size of a regular quad from a lack of chair.
That's right.
I love
We
it.
have giga quads. We have.
Yeah. Oh man. So let's get into our next reason for being bullish. I will say there's over 100 people watching live. Smash that like button. Give this a share. That will help get even more people in and watching. But we're actually going to jump to Will here because he had some interesting stuff. Also, if you are not following Will on Twitter, dude is dropping hot fire on my feed on the regular. So his stats and some of his pieces have been fantastic. So dude, take it away. What has you feeling bullish this week?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I appreciate it. The big thing for me, I would say, is that, you know, in the last week, despite some of the volatility that we've had, you can see on chain that a lot of these coins are being moved to what I use Glassnode. There's several different data providers that you can use, but the one that I use mostly is Glassnode, and they have a metric called a liquid supply. And so this basically measures addresses that have a tendency not to sell for a long period of time. And so in the last week on chain, we've seen well over $10 billion worth of Bitcoin being moved to these liquid addresses, which is of course very, very bullish. And I think, you know, sometimes people can confuse the fact that they say, oh, coins are being moved off exchanges. Why isn't the price going up immediately? And the thing is, you're not really going to see the full effect of this liquidity crunch, if you will, until we start to see more waves of demand, probably towards the end of the year, as more companies or institutions look to take positions in Bitcoin. And then you'll really see the full effect of there not being Bitcoins available to buy. And so that's something that I'm really keeping my eye on. I think the coins not on exchanges kind of comes down to like 3 main factors. The first is just, you know, in general, there's more kind of institutional grade custody solutions, and just I think a more broad awareness about the importance of putting your Bitcoins into cold storage. The second reason is you start to see a lot of miners on chain have actually stopped selling and have actually accumulating. And so I think that also can have something to do with the lending and borrowing markets that we now have that weren't around. Like, you know, a lot of the infrastructure around now wasn't around in the previous 2 bull cycles. And so now miners can access liquidity to kind of finance their operations without having to sell their coins onto the market. And you see some of them are actually accumulating. So Marathon, which I think is one of the better known publicly traded companies that mine Bitcoin, they've actually publicly come out and said, yeah, we're taking out debt to finance and buy Bitcoin. So that's another thing on chain that I really have my eyes on, because if there's no Bitcoins being dumped onto the market, that's also adding to this kind of liquidity crisis that we have in Bitcoin. And the final thing is what we had touched on earlier with the contango trade, which is this is more speculative, and there's not really a lot of data that we can see exactly that's there. You can look at like futures open interest, I suppose, and also just like in general that the amount of assets that BlockFi has under management. I think that maybe you could kind of throw in there, but there's nothing definitive to know that this is existing, at least to what extent that it's going on. But I think the Bitcoin being locked up in escrow until the trade, the contango trade is expired, I think that's something else that's adding as well. And then one other small thing is like the Grayscale, for example, like the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, the way it's set up is they can't move those coins for like 6 months. So there's a couple other small things like that where the coins are being locked up and they can't move. So it's really hard to say exactly what's causing it, but those are the kind of the factors that I think are at least mostly attributing to it.
Damn. Coming with the data. I love it. Yeah, that's, I mean, it seems like a good portion of the world are starting to become good Bitcoiners. Not your keys, not your coins. They're moving things out of counterparty risk in some of these situations. Like I'm wondering if the pleb factor has a little bit of that. I mean, obviously they're nowhere on the scale of these large institutions, but you get people like Michael Saylor, where he's like, okay, well, I've got billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and the cyber hornets are telling me to self-custody and run a node and things like that. While that won't be everyone, it's really cool to see that play out. And you have Elon Musk tweeting, hey, we're running our own nodes. And if you pay in, that was another thing that came up. If you pay for a Tesla in Bitcoin as of this week, we're not selling it. We're just putting it in cold storage and keeping it. We've got plenty of dollars to dump. So, yeah, I love seeing that people are holding their sats that they're stacking, or full Bitcoins if you're Elon Musk or Saylor. But let's toss it down to JM. Do you have any thoughts on this? Money moving off exchanges. Is this just like an extension of the ethos of Bitcoin being played out on a grander scale?
Yeah, I love it, because I just see, the humility of people being able to look at what's happened the last 8 years and plan accordingly. Like that, you're supposed to. I mean, if you think about just things that are just in their normal world, like you have seasons, like things where you benefit from. So crops and all these kind of things, they have natural seasons, and that allows you to plan. It's a blessing to people that happens. You can occupy yourself with other things. That you don't have to be working tirelessly to try to make money all the time. And so Bitcoin allows this to happen. It gives you, there's seasons where there's 2 years where the price goes down and everything stabilizes. And then 2 years where everything kind of explodes upward and you get new growth. And so I just think it's just the fact that people are recognizing that and beginning to kind of plan accordingly. I just think it's a great thing for the space. I think it's a great thing for humanity. I think humanity's reaped the benefit for the last 50 years of what it looks like when money is the ultimate decision making thing over and above people's welfare. And so you've seen, again, shout out to Heavily Armed Clown and Ben Prentice. WTF happened in 1971. I mean, just like it's that website just basically screams, this is not sustainable. And this is just the most recent example of steps in the right direction. So I'm super thankful for for just this whole space and everybody involved. And so
I love it. Have you seen on the topic of the predictability of Bitcoin? Have you seen the yearly candle chart where it's just a single candle for each year, and it's literally it's like green, 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 red, green, 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 red. You can just live your life on a 4-year cycle and you'll be totally fine. It's like the easiest cheat sheet I've ever seen.
Exactly. It's just
yeah, I love it. Let's toss it to, now that it mixed up the order on my screen, but let's toss it to Guy, and then we'll get keep it simple after for your thoughts.
Sweet. All right. So on the movement to movement from exchanges, I think it's a pretty strong indicator. I mean, I think it's crazy bullish. Just on its face, right, is that you're moving capital away from the place where you sell the capital. And that is inherently suggesting that there is a long-term position, whether it be infrastructural or long-term savings or institutional. And I think it's just or something like selling these futures contract and taking advantage of the contango trade. Like Preston Pish, had a great conversation with Preston Pish, and we like went into this for like an hour and 40 minutes, and like I just don't see how the development of interest rates in the Bitcoin space, and more importantly, the over collateralization of reserves in the Bitcoin space, is going to create a profoundly efficient and sustainable market, even with all the volatility in the Bitcoin price. And the fact that that is developing, I think all of these are just signals of how incredibly mature the market has become in the last year to 2 years, because you're seeing, I mean, this is the move to institutional long-term positions. Even if we're looking at, and I don't even know, Will, maybe you know whether or not the Glassnode statistic has like BlockFi and Unchained and LEDN and these other services included in it, is that might be a lot of what we're looking at, is people are actually loaning, or because we actually have a loan market now, we have an interest rate market within Bitcoin, is that people are able to keep their Bitcoin and still access the fiat value of it and manage it as a debt, and still actually hold on to their keys. And that shows it's a dichotomy, particularly when you look at that same metric back in 2017, how short that period was where it was actually falling, is that we've moved wholly from a speculative bubble to a very strong like infrastructural demand. You know, like this is just not the same game that we played in 2017. And then the other thing that just has me hilariously bullish, that just kind of makes me giggle, is that people think it's like the Bitcoin price falling to 50,000 is a crash. Like I'm just like people are literally worried on Twitter that Bitcoin is falling. I'm like, where have you been? What, like, seriously? And it just was, I don't remember who tweeted it, but somebody said literally like 6 months ago when the price was 5,000 or something like that, everybody was joking about how it was going to crash to $50,000. And it's like, here we are, it hadn't been a year, you know. But yeah, I think all of these are signs that, you know, regardless of what a lot of the facade of the public opinion is about Bitcoin and the crappy journalism, which is just crap anyway, in the perception of what Bitcoin is, I think it's showing that when the CEOs and the boardrooms are sitting down, they're taking this very seriously. And this is becoming a very robust and legitimate asset class. And that Bitcoin is taking the whole cake.
100%. Kiss, any thoughts here that you want to tag on?
Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry. It goes back to what we were talking about before. You know, I'd like to hold the intention that it is bullish, and you know, I'm ultra bullish. But again, if we go back to the conversation, if all these outflows are going into leverage to take advantage of that cash and carry trade, especially since a lot of this is institutional money, I'm completely speculating here, right? I'm just putting it out there. If we drop 50, 60%, you know, that's still $25,000. That's phenomenal, to Guy's point. Like, that is still amazing, right? But if you came in with a $20 or $30 million position at $45,000, it's a very different story. So, you know, in the short term, I think we're going to see, you know, some of these ups and downs. But in the long term, you know, we're going up. We know which way we're going. So I would love to better understand, and I think a lot of people would, you know, how much of that outflow from exchanges is going into places that are maybe more opaque, that something like Glassnode or, you know, people that build their own proprietary tools on the blockchain can't see, right? And how that's locked up, and how, you know, what the cascade effects are of that. That's it. Yeah.
Cool. Will, you wanted to share something, a chart that you had?
Oh yeah, so I shared my screen with you. I don't know if it came through, but I have the balance on exchange chart pulled up, and there's two boxes, and the one on the left,
Wait, did you hit share already?
I believe so.
Here,
Oh
hit
wait, okay,
share.
here we go, here we go.
Yeah, there
My
we go.
bad.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it in.
All right,
There we go.
all
Okay,
right, cool.
go ahead.
Yeah, so on the left hand side, you can see that the left box that's from the 2017 run, and constantly throughout, as the price rose, you saw more coins being moved onto exchanges. So that really indicates that it was kind of retail driven. And then now you can see on the right hand side that coins are how steep the amount of coins being moved off exchange. It's just so much deeper than any other time, and like we were saying earlier, it could be a bunch of different reasons, but that's definitely going to have an impact on the price. And one other thing, I just wanted to touch on something that Guy said. So in regards to the interest rates, it's really interesting because if we have these risk-free rates that blow out to, just as a round number, we'll say 20%, because I don't think that's that unreasonable, to be honest. And these rates are kind of essentially they're an outcome of hyper Bitcoinization. As we move further through this process of hyper Bitcoinization, the rates are going to continue to blow out. If we get out to 20%, when you're valuing assets, you use a discount rate, which is essentially a risk-free rate, which right now is most people use the 10-year treasury. So like if you're doing a discount cash flow model on a stock, for example, right? And so right now, the average PE ratio of the S&P 500 is over 34. It's like 34 and some change last time I checked, which isn't, I mean, it's overvalued in relative terms to other points in history. But it's when you compare it to what you're using as your discount rate, it's really not that overvalued because they've manipulated the interest rate down so far. And so if you start to have these what Bitcoin is a free and open market interest rates that are 20%, you're going to need to see PE ratios fall to 5, and that would just be matching the risk-free rate. So I'm not going to take on risk if I'm not going to have the same percent return on something that has risk versus something that doesn't have risk. So I'm going to need a substantially more return on that equity to make up for the risk, which is called in finance is called the risk premium. So you're going to need to not only see PE ratios fall to 5 if we have 20% Bitcoin risk-free rates, but substantially less than 5. And just to put that into context, if they fall down to 5 from 34 plus, you're looking at an 80% stock market correction.
Yeah.
So that's
And that was the big thing, is the crash in equities that would subsequently need to desperately find value, and you've got that risk-free rate sitting over in your left hand. Like, why did we not do this from the get-go?
Yeah, exactly. And this is where like a lot of people that hold like MicroStrategy, for example, they're like, oh yeah, Michael Saylor's going to turn MicroStrategy into a Bitcoin bank, which he might. I mean, that's great, but when you're looking in terms of what you want to be holding through the end of this hyper Bitcoinization process, you want to be holding the underlying Bitcoin, because all these equities, if you believe that Bitcoin is going to become the dominant form of money, these interest rates are going to follow through with that process, and that's going to crash everything.
Mm-hmm. And somebody asked, where did the 20% risk-free rate come from? Was that just like a number?
Yeah, that was just a number I brought up off the top of my head, but
it's a hypothetical. I think it's like 6% right now or something like that.
Yeah. And it's funny because there was some buzz on Twitter like the last few days because BlockFi dropped their interest rate on Bitcoin. But then the interest rates on borrowing like USDT and stuff like that, depending on where you go, are quite high, like double digits. And so it tends to be like or not borrowing, but lending it to them in like a savings account. And it tends to be because people don't want the risk of lending out their Bitcoin, but they're happy to I guess lend out their dollars, and then they're able to turn that around for people will borrow it for a high rate, and they'll go and use that to speculate on Bitcoin. Is that what they're doing when they're like borrowing USDT from these people? Like I think that's because like people aren't borrowing Bitcoin from them, or they're not willing to pay as much to borrow the Bitcoin from them, right? If they can't give as high up an interest rate, is that right?
I don't know, but I will say the people that are borrowing Bitcoin are probably doing that the cash and carry trade. I just don't see why else you would be borrowing Bitcoin.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, because I mean, if you borrow the Bitcoin and you do something with it, and that was a bad idea, and then the Bitcoin price continues to go up, and now you don't have the Bitcoin, and you're trying to pay back the debt, that could be dangerous. I imagine.
For sure.
Hazardous to your health. Yeah, let's keep this rolling, guys. There's 150 some people in here. Smash that like, give us a share. We're gonna keep it going, and we're gonna toss it to JM. And dude, we're gonna get you and on your reason for being bullish this week. And I should say, people in the chat, keep it coming. I'll bring up any comments and stuff that I see that are relevant to what we're talking about. But Jam, take it away.
Yeah.
What has you feeling bullish?
Yeah, man, the thing that has me bullish, again, this is kind of the mode that I get into a lot, because like I'm not super great on like the technical analysis and stuff like that. But one of the things that I do is I just reflect, just keep reflecting, like just kind of like looking around at like what's going on and just trying to appreciate, like everybody who's involved in this space. I just think it's just a really powerful group of people, just given the principles and just the character traits of Bitcoiners is just one of the things that gets me just excited. The more every time I meet a Bitcoiner, I'm just like, this person sees the world in a way that is just more real than the way that Wall Street and this fiat bubble inflated world sees the world. And so I just think there's so many people. You just think about, the cryptocurrency, the cryptography obviously that underlies Bitcoin is obviously a humongous thing. This belief in the necessity for privacy. Just that the governments aren't gods. They don't have the right to do whatever they feel like doing. They have to be checked and bound by rules as well. And so cryptography enables that in a lot of ways. So you have people who are working on that. Obviously you have Satoshi Nakamoto, you have Hal Finney, like all these guys who kind of went before us. These guys who, they literally gave. I think about Satoshi and it blows my mind. Like the guy gave away his best idea. Like rather than you have all of these, we have this world where everyone's trying to save, tie up their IP for as many years as possible as they can just selfishly hoard. Not even necessarily selfishly, but just trying to hoard as much gains for themselves as possible. And just the whole idea of open source projects, just giving it away. And obviously the idea is that down the road you're gonna win bigger if you do that. So those guys from the outset, but then you got people, Paul Etoy from Sphinx, just building this Web 3.0, just all those kind of guys. You've got, obviously for me, one of my intros to Bitcoin was the Tales from the Crypt Pod. And so you've got Matt, who just drilling into my head, the importance of privacy. And so I'm sitting there like going down the privacy rabbit hole, finding all these privacy resources. And then I'm like sharing them to, with people and friends and family, and just showing the importance from a lot of different perspectives. You've got, you've got today, Jesse Berger, who's Matt, who wrote the book Magic Internet Money, put out this article called "Risk It for the Brisket." I don't know how I can share this. Let me see. Let me see if I can share this screen.
Book, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Perfect. So he just wrote this
closing
article.
up that audio book, by the way. So
are
Cool.
you?
Awesome.
Yes.
very, very soon on that one. Still waiting for Layered Money to get approved as well. But yeah, we did Magic Internet Money. That was so good.
Yeah. So he just
I got them all. If you wrote a book, it's here.
People are waiting on that Layered Money.
He just put out an article today called "Risk It for the Brisket" that basically looks at the Adamson barbecue situation going on in Canada, and just why that is a big deal, and just kind of for people maybe who are in the States who haven't been following as much. Him just laying out like the political implications, and so how Bitcoin would help avoid a world like this. You've just got obviously you got guys like Robert Breedlove and GG who are just taking on the philosophical side of things and just kind of helping people think through. Just a bunch of steps beyond just their immediate situation. Like these are where these things are going, and helping people think, with a lower time preference. You've got Jack Mallers, who's working on, international payments. I mean, like our church here, I help with a small church plant, about 60 people here in the capital city in Uruguay. And about 40% of our church are Venezuelan immigrants. And so, I mean, all these people have seen their lives get destroyed by fiat money and by government ability to print money, and just trying to preserve the value of their money and access it and all these kind of things. And Jack Mallers is out there, enabling them to, just buy, purchase other currencies and hold them, super easily. So, I mean, then again, you've got our blunt objects. I think of American HODL and Bitcoin
Yes.
Tina. Like they're just blunt objects. We just throw at people, and just, again, it's not that they're not brilliant. They are brilliant, but then just their sheer volume and power just overwhelms people. I just love the Bitcoin community. Matt Hill, I'm a big fan of the Start9 Embassy and just everything that they're doing. Just the importance of individuals, the importance of families, the deconstruction of and decentralization of humanity is just something that's really important, and that causes, is going to enable a lot more freedom and a lot more human flourishing than is currently able to happen in this current environment. So and again, all of you guys here, I'm sitting here when Ben, reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to participate. I'm like, let's see, keep it simple, Bitcoin. I was using his videos the other day. I was like looking at cold card videos, and appreciate him. Guy, sorry man, we didn't get you the Thank God for Bitcoin audiobook, but like seriously, I've appreciated your work. Will, I was just mentioning before we got on the air that I have a cousin who, in the 3 or 4 days leading up to today, he's been probably sent me 30 of Will's tweets. And then BTC sessions, I'm sitting here like, Ben, like your videos have helped me, and I've sent them to a bunch of family members. So, I mean, just the fact that like the whole Bitcoin atmosphere is built around adding value to other people. It's built around serving and helping people and providing their needs and making money off of adding value to people, and not just, having zero-sum games where you get money at people's expense. So the entire ethos of the community, it's just something that means a lot to me, and that just has me bullish as I think about the months and years that are to come. So.
I love it. Bullish on Bitcoiners. I'm bullish on existing Bitcoiners, and I'm bullish on new Bitcoiners because I've got a 3-year-old daughter, and in 1 week I will have a son alongside her.
Man,
so,
congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm minting Bitcoiners over here.
Yes.
I've got one for each of the past 2 epochs. So we'll see if we keep up that pace.
Nice. Congrats, dude. That's awesome.
He's got to
have the halving event. Yeah, the halving of my relevance in the family as a whole. I'll toss it to Guy Swann here. JM's bullish on Bitcoiners. Maybe you want to toss out a few of your favorite Bitcoiners that you think are doing great things and are an asset to the space, or any other thoughts that you have here too.
Holy crap.
Not to put you on the spot or anything, but I want to know your top number one Bitcoiner. You can only name one. You're not allowed. You exclude everybody else, and they will all feel bad.
Oh my god!
No, just
seriously, the number of Bitcoiners who have, it's insanely bullish. The number of people who have left something else and have tried to devote everything to the Bitcoin space. I mean, I'm just watching, and it's like, Swann's hired people, Unchained's hiring people or whatever, and people like in my the Audionauts group or whatever in the Telegram, somebody's like, I just got a job at blah blah blah, and it's like a steady stream of people just like, how do we keep building this out? And I get constant messages of people like, I love the show. I've been trying to figure out how I could actually contribute to Bitcoin in some way. If you ever need any help, like, I'm here. I want to build and do things here in Bitcoin. And I think it just goes to show how deep the care and the reasoning, like the philosophy and the reason for being here really goes. And that this is not just something where Yeah, you know, I mean, this is not crypto where it's just like it's either, you know, we've got crypto kitties and number go up. Like, this is something that really changes how people think about things and how people think about building solutions for the future. And they're very serious about it. And I'm crazy bullish on all of it. And I've gotten more proposals to read books than I know what to do with. And everybody's just writing awesome stuff. Like awesome stuff. I mean, I'm up to like 170 authors or whatever that I've read. I mean, I've read a lot of things like from people who have like 5 articles or 15 articles, like Parker Lewis or something, on the show. But like, there's still just so many new people that I keep bumping into, and new great articles have some interesting perspective on it, or an analogy or a way to think about something that just was almost there, but they just add some spice to it that you're like, holy crap. And it sees it so much more vividly in a new way. And there's still just so much thought being contributed to the space. And I'm just crazy. I'm just crazy bullish on all of that. Like, I think the space has grown, and the amount of time and devotion that people are turning around and trying to give back to Bitcoin. The fact that I see is continually increasing, I think, is awesome.
I love what John said in the chat here. And black hole industry sucks everybody in from their regular jobs. 100%. I love it. Kiss, what are you feeling? Are you bullish on Bitcoiners too? Do you have any that come to mind?
Yeah, you know, it's I can speak from personal experience. Just the motivation to contribute is becomes so strong. For me, I felt like I spent a year and a half just trying to figure out how to do it in a way that actually delivers value, because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do it. And I think it feels like to me, everybody that we're talking about shares that like same spark. You know, JM sees the spark, shares it, like, and so it's so important because I guess what people outside of the space coming into the space, looking into the space, you know, like laser eyes, things like that, they see people that they label radical or extreme or whatever it is, because to see a human being that stands for something so fully and so powerfully is, in our present fiat system, such a rare thing, right? It's uncommon because everybody is just droning along, trying to make the best of it, but not even really standing for much of anything. And it's good because it wakes other people up. Everything that we do and the stance that we take wakes people up, and that's valuable. And I was listening to Peter McCormack's podcast with American HODL, and just while I was working today on a guide, and American HODL was talking about how everybody in his real life doesn't listen, and that's the same thing for me too. Nobody in my real life, has any exposure to Bitcoin. And I told every single one of them, and like I bought them books, Bitcoin stats, like spent money and time and energy. Nobody listens, right? But who's listening? Who am I helping? People I don't even know that reach out to me on the internet. And I think that's also something that a lot of people can relate to. It's like, oh, the people that I want to help the most don't want to be helped. And 4 years ago, I told you to do this, and now, what are we, 50x? I mean, we're way above 50x from when I was sending people Bitcoin Standard, right? Maybe less than that. But it's like, oh, you could have helped yourself, but you didn't. And you know what? I can't feel bad for you. I love you, but you can only help yourself. Like, I can't really help anyone. I can just do what I think is valuable, and hopefully it helps people. And if it does, I keep doing that. That's the best that I can do. And the same for all of us, right? Like, you just got to keep it moving and focus your energy where you feel like it's best served. And that's why I'm so bullish, because I see people doing that all over Twitter. And I know that there's so much of it that we don't even see.
Yeah.
So super bullish.
Yeah, 100%. There's so many great people in the space that are contributing so much. Will, I don't know if, I mean, you're one of them that you've been putting out great stuff as of late, but are there any people that stand out to you that you've kind of, have helped you? You're relatively new into the space. So like who did you get, who did you start off with your learning?
Can I interrupt real quick? Will, what's your handle? Do I follow you?
I think so. It's W Clemente, which is CLE.
Oh. I didn't even recognize you. I'm an idiot. Yeah, I follow you.
It's the laser eyes, man. You can't even.
It was. Where are they? What did you do? You cut them off?
But to answer your question, man. Well, first of all, I just wanted to touch on something Kiss said that, I think with all due respect to you guys, I'm young. My generation hasn't been taught what I feel like is kind of like this complacency and I feel like with years and years of this kind of fiat way of thinking and that's kind of been drilled into generations before, it's hard to change that way of thinking. And so I think for like me and my generation, we're young and to some extent I think like our ignorance is an asset to us, and to the extent that we don't know anything different. Like I haven't grown up in the incentive structure built around fiat currency. I've just come to, luckily I came across Bitcoin, but I didn't know any different. I was just like, oh yeah, this is way better than paper currency, and like I'd never even think of it as like something like I had to make this big turnaround to move over into this thing. So I think that's over the next couple decades, I think as your generation gets a little older, I think the younger people are going to be, especially because of the digital aspect of it, but also because they don't know any different. And in that sense, I think there'll be a lot more hands-on with Bitcoin, and they'll accept it easier. It won't take as much for them to transfer over from the old fiat system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Are you noticing amongst people that you talk with that are your age? I mean, first of all, do any of them like reference Bitcoin? Have you had those conversations with people around you? And like, what's the general feel? Like, is there a lot of the, like it's boiling the oceans kind of FUD, or is it like, is there interest? Is there curiosity? Or is there just like, I don't care? Like, what's your feel around that?
And is there rampant shitcoining too? Please answer that.
Yeah, man. The unit bias is a big problem for sure. But the big thing is that people are they're very acceptant of the digital space, because that's what we've all grown up in. I've always had the internet. I don't know any different. I've always had a cell phone. Since I had my first cell phone when I was in like 4th grade, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like I grew up with it, and so did everybody else around me. So to us, it's very native, and to us, it's just kind of natural to have the digital currency via the internet. And in that sense, people are much more willing to, I think like for my parents, for example, like I'm still working on them, but for them, they're older and they're like, oh, internet money, how can you not just create more? Like all those kinds of things, because they haven't been able to wrap their head around the whole internet. Like my parents aren't very tech savvy or any of those kinds of things. So I think that's part of the reason why everybody in my generation has been much more hands-on. But yeah, they have been asking a lot of questions. There's a lot of shit coining, but aside from that, they just need the little discussion, and then they're like, okay, I get it. But it's there, like the potential for them to understand it is there, and they're open-minded to figuring it out, which is I think what really matters. And to answer your other question, in regards to people that I kind of look up to in the space, first of all, Preston Pish, because he's the one that really got me into originally the discount cash flow based kind of investing, and that's what led me to the realization that you need sound currency to make economic calculation based off of free cash flow. So that was a big light bulb moment for me. But I think he takes this financial understanding, and he has like this very deep financial background, and he's able to apply that. And he's kind of like the bridge between the old traditional fiat system to this new system, and he's able to kind of word things in a way that are understandable for people that are outside of the Bitcoin space. So I think he's one. Plan B as well. Plan B is brilliant. I think he's got a lot of experience in the fixed income space, and he knows a lot about derivatives as well, which is something that I'm trying to wrap my head around, but he's very knowledgeable on that. And then from an on-chain perspective, Willy Woo for sure. I think he was like the OG on-chain analyst, but he's created most of the metrics that I'm looking at on Glassnode. He created half of them, so that guy's a genius.
Awesome. I love it. It blows my mind that you're 18. I'm literally, so my birthday is tomorrow, and I'm turning double your age tomorrow. So I can feel bad about that, and you feel good about that.
Should we all sing? Should we all sing in like half a second delay? Happy birthday.
Yeah. Try and harmonize.
Yeah, let me just add one thing too. Just kind of Will was mentioning kind of the dynamic of, the older people, and not, a more the concept of a digital world being harder for them to kind of square with. I actually had a conversation with a Uruguayan lady here the other day about it, and she had spent some time in Sweden. And there's a town in Sweden, I'm sure you guys know what it is. There's a town in Sweden where like they accept Bitcoin everywhere. And so she was saying that it's a kind of a controversial thing there because the older people don't understand it. And so it's like this thing where the older people are at a disadvantage. And so she was presenting that as maybe like a negative of a Bitcoin where, as of a world where Bitcoin plays a bigger role. And the conversation I had with her was honestly, for the last 50 years, the people who grew up in that area, so the people who are older now have had a severe advantage over young people, given, the price of assets and all these other things, that young people have been at a complete disadvantage. And so it's really kind of appropriate. I think it's really interesting to see how, Bitcoin is kind of, maybe tipping the scales back. So there's not quite that same level of inequality. It is really just interesting how things happen.
VJ put out a chart the other day, and it was comparing the difference between, I don't want to get the generation wrong, but it was essentially the older generations compared to, I think, millennials, and the gap is just huge. And the real reason, I think, and I think you guys would agree, is that the monetary policy in the last couple decades of manipulating interest rates, and then of course QE over the last 10 years. But I think those older generations have benefited so much from the money printing just by holding assets that are going up in default just because there's more units that they're being measured in. So like you said, I completely agree that now the playing field is kind of being measured. And it also aligns with, in Ray Dalio's book, Big Debt Crises, he talks about these different ways that these debt crises are resolved. And there's austerity, there's, like UBI and direct money, and there's QE, and then the very last thing, when all those, manipulating interest rates, and the very last thing, when all those things aren't working anymore, the last thing is wealth transfer / revolution. And so usually what that entails is some kind of conflict, usually a war. And if you look at the history of like these debt cycles and credit cycles, usually it ends in some kind of war. But now I think Bitcoin is offering this new outlet where, if Bitcoin wasn't here, there'd have to be some kind of end game to all of this. And Bitcoin offers, I think, the most peaceful revolution and wealth transfer to resolve the debt crisis that we're in addition to the inequality and the difference between these generations that have resolved, have came about because of the money printing.
Well, if you haven't read it already, you should read The Fourth Turning. It's very much about. I'm actually about halfway through it right now. I sadly hadn't read it, but I'm actually listening on audiobook right now. But it's solid. It's basically talking about kind of these 20-year generational shifts and kind of these different epochs, and how these after about 4 turnings, there's some sort of big crisis that resets and puts us into like an awakening, a new era. Basically, it goes on the premise of hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. And so it's just kind of cycles through, and based on kind of when you're born and what you're experiencing at certain points of your life, you'll have a different type archetype and how you respond to those external stimuli. It's really, really cool. And it definitely makes me think of kind of like where I'm at with my generation, where my parents were at, and where my kids are going to be at. And it's unique to have like people of different generations discussing this stuff. You know, we've got people like Gary Leland, you know, on shows and hosting conferences. And then you've got, you know, people like yourself that are just coming into the space, all kind of uniquely fitting into this space and are like cogs in this new, what I imagine will be kind of like you said, a peaceful monetary revolution. It's so cool to see how each archetype is going to play their part in this global shift. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'll check out the book, man. I mean, I appreciate it. It's interesting that lines up exactly with Ray Dalio's 80-year debt cycles, and you're saying it's 420. So that's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
One other thing, just to like touch on what you said, I know I've been talking a lot, but I wrote a piece called The Bitcoin Renaissance, and that kind of aligns with what we were kind of getting at. So maybe we could move the conversation in that direction. But I think having a sound money is going to make society as a whole just so much better. And we're going to have this new era of just prosperity and just in general optimism, you know, like I think we're in such a pessimistic society that's been based off of these fiat ways of thinking and incentive structures. But I think Bitcoin will kind of bring back this new sense of optimism and just in general, like just new era of flourishment of all kinds of different things. I think, you know, the Bitcoiners have that saying, fix the money, fix the world.
Mm-hmm.
People don't, you know, money really does have a big impact on a lot of things aside from just the financial aspect of it. And that's what I think a lot of Bitcoiners are here for. Like we're here, obviously, you know, a lot of us, I mean, I got into Bitcoin. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I got into Bitcoin because this thing's like a rocket ship going up, you know, but I stayed when I understood all these kind of philosophical and just in general, like better ways that Bitcoin incentivizes society to act. And that's why I'm really, you know, I'm all in on Bitcoin, not just because like I'm all in because I want more return, but because I want to do everything I can. Like, yeah, my $50 I'm buying, you know, that's not really going to do anything, but at least I can sleep at night saying, look, I contributed $50 towards, and that's the best I could do and everything that I could put forth to contribute towards a better society.
I love it. Ooh, I'm bullish on Will. So's the chat. Everybody's bullish on Will and the new generation of Bitcoiners coming up. Awesome. Let's keep this rolling. Let's get into our next reason. We have about 170 people watching right now. Smash that like button. Give this a share. Let's keep it rolling. I'm going to toss it to our good friend Guy Swann here to drop his reason for being bullish. I'm also going to, I just have to step away for a second, but I am still here and I can still hear this. But Guy, yeah, feel free to drop your reason. And if I'm not back before you finish your reason, then keep it simple. You can tag on your thoughts.
Awesome. So I actually wanted to say something about that, the dynamic of the quote unquote unfairness or whatever of the older generation and the younger generation, like having, you know, access to this or kind of being more familiar with it. But then you say, well, they've kind of like unfairly benefited. Well, if you like really take like a huge step back and like look at the major picture, like you see that literally those older generations, whether this was the actual intent or not, what they've actually done is the reason all of their prices and profits and retirements and pensions and everything are propped up is by the liability that the younger generation will pay for it. Like, this is why we have a trash economy. This is why even my generation, but even worse, the generations below me, are going to get out of college and still just work at Starbucks. You know, it's the very reason we are in such a horrible situation today is because of the debt that has been, they have pulled all of our futures forward so that they can sit comfortably today. And yeah, that's being corrected, and it should be, you know, like. How dare somebody be next door? So like on that point, like I think this is a necessary correction, right? And it in the hold on one second.
No worries. I would tag on there. I definitely agree with the sentiment here. You know, part of the reason that I'm, you know, even able to, you know, myself and my wife, now that we're having our second kid, like we finally, you know, we bought a home, we're in a home, and we're kind of, you know, settling down into this like our family home that we're going to be in for, you know, years, decades. And we're kind of like setting out our lives. But I wouldn't have been able to do this without Bitcoin. Not a chance. Like coming into it, just even with a well-paying job, to have that kind of a down payment, to have the funds necessary, you know, in a fiat world where you're working 9 to 5 and you put away what you can and groceries keep exploding. I can't even imagine, with all the money that was just printed, what would be facing my children, you know, a couple decades out when they try to finish and go into real life. If Bitcoin wasn't there, I shudder to think. Anyways, guys, sorry, go ahead.
No, we had to let the dogs calm down. Somebody said they saw a central banker, and I was like, like, you know, like this is the proper correction. Like Bitcoin is the exit. It's them saying, like I'm not going to be saddled with this burden. You know, the burden that has been put on the economy is not of our creation. It's the political systems and the central banking systems. And it was done by selling it to the older generations that this is just what we need, and this is how you get your benefit. And we're in the worst. This is the thing that just gets me, is particularly like all my normie friends just think that this is business as usual. And some of them are waking up and being like, this is surreal. There's something very odd going on. But to just look at this from a historical perspective, we're not like in a big debt bubble. We're in the greatest debt bubble in the history of humankind.
Yep.
Like ever. Like this makes the Roman Empire jealous. You know, like it's unbelievable the financial situation we are in, and it is global. It's not even, it's in the world reserve currency. It's not like one country that is in this situation. It is the entire fiat system. And like Bitcoin is the exit, you know? And people are opting out. Like they're sick of being on the hamster wheel. For very good reason. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Go, Kiss.
I wanted to jump on that. Am I echoing?
A little bit.
No. I don't hear
like
you.
You're in your kitchen, but I don't hear echo.
Fuck.
I think I got you.
Just to tap on real quick, I just wanted to say we've never had an escape valve. So the manipulation has been able to take place because there's never been an alternate system. And Guy, I got this literally from your podcast with Preston. but yeah, there's never been an escape valve to step out of the manipulation, and that's what Bitcoin is offering.
Can you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
We got you, Kiss. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we got
I wanted to jump on, piggyback on that. So regarding the fourth turning, we're talking about the fourth turning and how these periods always culminate in some huge kind of explosion, right? And that explosion transitions into that next awakening. And I think because of Bitcoin, what we're going to see is hopefully not an external war, but what we're seeing is an internal war, because we now have a sovereign tool, right? Like the invention of gunpowder, or the gun. We have a tool where you and I can use this tool in order to transition ourselves into that better place. And so the war is going to be internal, because people have to come to grips with reality, and then they have to make a choice. They have to make a choice that I want to be accountable, and I want to be part of that new place, that better world, and I'm okay with that painful transition. And hopefully it doesn't culminate in a war like we've seen for hundreds of years, because the wars are fought by the ones that hold the power. They hold the money, the control over the coffers, right? They clip the coins, they use the money in order to get everybody else to fight their battles. Bitcoin puts an end to that. And so, my reason for being bullish, which I'm not going to bring up necessarily yet, but it kind of comes down to the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. And these federal governments, the US government, thinks they're an immovable object and don't acknowledge the fact that Bitcoin's an unstoppable force. And they're going to come to terms with that in a very traumatic way. And we're going to be living through this process, right? Because they cannot continue to throw the human energy, right? To throw our bodies in front of it in order to kind of triage their situation. They're going to run out of that, because more and more people are going to be like, you know what? I'm going to just step over here and you figure out your own thing. And that's going to be the transition. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that we talk about in Thank God for Bitcoin is we talk about just about the idea. It's like all throughout we use the scriptures to kind of be like an evaluative, thing. And so one of the scriptural principles that you see everywhere is just the principle of sowing and reaping. And so we live in a world that at this point that completely denies sowing and reaping. Like, fiat basically says it allows you to create your own reality by printing. We can get out of any problem by printing money. And so like when you look at, like Bitcoin, the reason why it works is because it does follow sowing and reaping principles. Like there's this basic, it acknowledges the real world in which it lives in, and it lives according to those things. And so there's Horace, the writer who wrote the Odyssey, or is it? Yeah, I think it's Horace who wrote that. No, whoever I can't remember what the book is that he wrote, but basically Horace, one of the things that he said was, you may drive out nature with a pitchfork, but it will always come back. And so I think that like for 100 years, we've had, for especially 50, since we went off the gold standard, we've been living against reality, and we've been able to get away with it. But like those chickens are going to come home to roost. Like you can't just deny reality forever. And and so it's so funny. Like one of the things, there's all these like biblical allusions to the situation that's going on right now. And this is probably one of my favorite ones is you have, so the number 40 in the Bible is it's like a period of testing or judgment. So if you guys know any history of the Bible, like you have like the Israelites were in, the wilderness for 40 years. You have, let's see, there was 40 days that the ark was on the waters. So there's the number 40 keeps coming up over and over again. And so it just so happens that from 1971 to 2011, when Bitcoin started to really get it started to get more widespread attention and be adopted on a more widespread basis, is about 40 years. And so like for me, again, I'm not saying that's, this is some divine thing, but it just was really interesting to me that fiat ruled the world for 40 years. And then, it's right around then that this other thing comes in. And so, Bitcoin comes in and starts to break down, the fiat world that has been, wreaking havoc on the world. And so then the other cool thing that other people have brought up, I think Breedlove's talked about this, is just the idea of, within the Jewish framework of things, every 50 years, they had this year of Jubilee. And so this is where like debts were canceled, and basically and again, it wasn't all debts, but it was basically a lot of debts. It was basically kind of like this cultural reset where you can go back to, everybody can just start over and it be a more stable, more sustainable situation. And so if you look at like what's 50 years from 1971 is 2021. And so part of me is like, wouldn't it be super appropriate if we hit hyper Bitcoinization, in 2021?
And we get basically a natural jubilee. Like it just resets the system.
Yeah. So again, I'm not going to swear by that, but I just think it'd be really cool if they did happen.
I just wanted to tag in. There's in nature, there's this natural thing of you kind of the yin and yang thing. You have to have night if you have day, and there's this natural course of things. I just wanted to throw in this little excerpt from Jeff Booth's The Price of Tomorrow. Right,
Jeff is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that book.
He says the problem comes from believing we can outrun inflation and the natural order of things by creating more and more debt. It's a bit like trying to flap your arms to fight gravity. Gravity will win. Even a plane using massive gravity to stay in the air must eventually land. So like that goes completely with that whole, there's a natural flow of things, and you can try to fight against it as long as you want, but eventually nature will work itself out, and you can't outdo the natural order and flow of the way that things are.
Yeah. And I like in that concept too, is that the very attempt of government trying to manipulate it is the thing that makes them fail, right?
Yep.
Like it's the pretense of knowledge concept of Hayek is that like they are assuming that they can put on reality what they want it to be rather than accept what reality is. And the analogy I like to use is that the attempt to cook the books in order to reshape reality is akin to thinking that you can break the gauge and just like hold it at level in your airplane, and that means that your airplane is flying straight when your airplane is actually going down. Is it like you can pretend and you can make the gauge screw up for a long time, and maybe your plane's really high in the air, so it takes you a good couple of hours before you actually land and hit the mountain. But at the end of the day, like your plane is going down and you're trying to hold the altimeter so that nobody knows that that's what's happening. And so their very attempt to try to mess with the gauge is like trying to say, we caught 2 fish today, but we're going to write down on this piece of paper that it was 3, and we're all going to plan as if we have 3 meals. And that's what they're doing. They're just lying. They're just lying about reality. And the very nature of a lie has consequences. That's what makes it false.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized we just kind of like we went way down this stream. If y'all still want to hear why I'm bullish, it has nothing to do with this, even though it's all of these reasons.
This is so bullish already. I was like, oh my God. All right. Yes.
But my reason for being bullish right now, particularly the last couple of days, I'm going to see if I can get close to the camera. See these notifications? Yeah. These are my Sphinx notifications.
Yes.
The people streaming sats to my podcast. It's just on and on.
So cool.
That's awesome.
And they're in like groups. Like it'll be like blank for like an hour or two, and then I'll get like another like 80 notifications. And
Wow.
and it's just like one of them, like, and I can see too, because there's like a couple of people, like it's like 9 sats, 43 sats, 22 sats, like, just various, because they're all just donating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like just like even think that the small ones, like 9 sats. It's like that's like half a penny. So like on an hour and a half podcast, that's like 50 cents. And like somebody's just paying that over Lightning constantly. And like my every single week. I mean, every time I'm on BT's session show, I'm talking about lightning. Lightning is the reason I'm bullish always, apparently. But it's literally because every single time I come back on, I'm using it in a new way, or it's become more reliable, or I have like 3 new wallets that are awesome. Breeze just implemented podcast too, so you can now do this with Breeze and Sphinx, and it's absolutely awesome what you can do with this. And if anybody hasn't listened to Paul on TFTC, oh my God, if you just want to get like irresponsibly bullish, that's the one to listen to right now. And then at the exact same time, I liken it to, or attribute it to, possibly it's probably a combination of things, but the fact that Node software is improving substantially. It's becoming a whole lot easier to actually set up. Umbrel is incredibly user-friendly. MyNode, the Raspi Blitz, the Start9 Embassy, all of these things that are popping up, node counts are on the rise again for like the first time in 2 years.
Yes.
Or 3 years or something like that.
That's awesome.
And a pretty substantial rise. And I think it's because there's an explicit benefit now for having it, and the software has gotten that much easier and smoother to implement.
Totally.
And then also the build out of the Lightning Network, everybody's got a node. You know, like kind of the idea of like, I've got to get my Lightning node up is that I've got to have a full node to defend and make my Lightning node really quick and responsive and basically ready and in sync. I think that's a big deal. I think as Lightning rolls out, we'll see it actually make the infrastructure layer. We'll actually see the base layer get that much more robust because of Lightning infrastructure. You know, they're kind of one and the same. And I'm super jacked about that. I think what we're about to see unfold with Strike, with Sphinx, with all of these things, like they're little sparks that, oh my God, there's going to be an inferno of what you can do with this thing. And I think we're only 6 months to a year out to just crazy development and potential adoption.
The Breeze stuff is awesome. I just saw that, and I'm just getting set up to have the pod on there. I haven't played with Sphinx yet, but like, just again, like Lightning is getting quite a bit easier. I was messing around with Moon Wallet the other day too, where it's just a single unified balance, and there's no delineation between whether it's on chain or off chain. It's off chain by default, but like the user doesn't see any of that. And they've implemented these interesting things where, you know, you can receive a regular Bitcoin payment just through the QR code, or you can receive like a Lightning invoice, and it comes into the wallet. It sits in a Lightning channel, but they do something called splicing on the way out. So if it requires an on-chain transaction, it will actually close the channel, send in the process of closing the channel, send out a Bitcoin transaction, but the change will actually be creating a brand new Lightning channel in the same process, in the same transaction. So it's all just simultaneous. Everything is automated on the way out, which is fantastic. And like the user has no idea. It just works. And I think
it's a great tool for atomic swapping. Like if somebody's on like Lightning Network, like you could just send it to a Bitcoin, send it to your Moon, then send it to a Bitcoin address, like you know, Green Wallet or Blue Wallet or something, and you just don't even, you don't see it. Yeah. You don't use like a service or anything like that. You just use your wallet.
It's crazy. It's so cool. You other guys here, have you what are your experiences with Lightning thus far? And I'm talking as my camera dies, but keep going. If anybody wants to jump in here.
Ben, let me just let you know. So I just created you an invite on Sphinx. So as soon as I pay for this here, it's like taking a second to load, but as soon as I do that, I'll shoot it to you and you can hop on there in Sphinx and check it out. Somebody posted today my first interaction with Lightning. They said, again, this probably it's not precisely true, but I think for a lot of people it is. The original, how did they phrase it? I can't remember how the tweet was phrased. It basically was like, the first intro to Lightning for a lot of people was the Fold app. And for me, that was the truth. That was the first time. I mean, like I had heard about it, but the Fold app was really the first time where I was like, I really thought about how to use it, and even did use it a couple times. And so I just think like those guys, again, they're just doing awesome work. As far as other things, I've been playing around with it a little bit on the Start 9 Embassy. I haven't got it set up yet. There's just so many things. They just added the BTC Pay server too, so I'm over there trying to get that set up. But yeah, I mean, Sphinx has been awesome. I just reloaded a few times and have sent people stuff. I've used the Strike app to just mess around with. I don't know if you guys have heard of like Tutanota, not Tutanota. What is it? Azteco Bitcoin vouchers.
Yeah,
you could buy non KYC Bitcoin vouchers, and they charge like a 5%, royalty fee or whatever. But like, and you could pay for that with, with the Strike app. So I mean, it's just such a cool implementation. The fact that it's so quick, it just blows my mind. Every time I use it, I'm like, the money's already there. Like it's already settled. It was like 2 seconds ago. It's already settled and everything's good to go. It's just awesome.
That's awesome. Kiss, have you dove into Lightning? What have you played with yet?
Yeah, I mean, I've been running my node for the last year, and I barely do anything with it. I started playing with Sphinx a couple months ago. I haven't opened the app in a little while, but it's amazing how much easier it's gotten. And once devs kind of automate the channel management and stuff and liquidity, that the users needs to be part of that now. And when that's automated away, I mean, with things like Sphinx, Strike is amazing. I use Strike to stack sats. I send it straight into my Samurai wallet or into Join Market, and it's so fast. I mean, I even recommend to noobs, just get Strike, because it's so easy. Unfortunately, there's a weekly limit on it, but it's so easy to use. So it's really exciting. Marty Bent on RHR a couple of days ago. I don't know if it's a declaration, but he's like, by 2022, he wants to completely get rid of ads and just have value for value. And I think that's so amazing, because like people need to kind of step in the front and show people what can be done in order to build that. You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of why I wear this mask, because I want to like show people you can add value and create and not have to, participate in this KYC kind of regime. Like Bitcoin allows that, and it's the most beautiful thing ever, because you can just provide value on your terms, and if that value is appreciated, people will provide value in return as backflow for that. I mean, that's like the most free will kind of exchange. Like, it's beautiful. It's why I Bitcoin. It's like the most beautiful thing, and it's awesome. Yeah, so I love it. I love it, and I think we're only about 6 months or a year away to where it explodes. I think Sphinx and this like automated kind of like the programmable channel management stuff like that, and it'll be a huge inflow. I mean, it'll be massive.
Yeah, there's on that point actually, which is so cool about the whole podcasting 2.0 thing. The fact that this is you just have your key send, like you just have your Lightning address essentially in the RSS feed, right? But the really fascinating idea, or the really fascinating kind of like fundamental way that it works, is that you can split payments automatically just in the feed. So like it's just a detail of like percent and then like the key send address. So what Adam, when I was talking with Adam on the show, what he talked about is that like you could have like the people doing your artwork like automatically have, like, they put their key send, and it's like 5% of whatever the episode is that they did the artwork for, just automatically goes to them. There's no middleman, there's no payment processor, there's no splitting it. Like, it just 5% goes to them, 95% goes to the episode creator. And you say, like, Marty Bent and crew or whatever, they want to go like ad free. They want to see if you could get actually this value for value thing, like, full on. Well, I've been fighting with how to figure that out myself, like what would the time frame be to actually make something like that work. And I've been fighting with trying to figure out how to make a private RSS feed and set all this stuff up and like have it so that Sphinx and or Breeze or whatever just has that RSS feed that has a separate publication of my show with no ads, right? But it's been a huge headache. I have changed my workflow so that it's relatively easy to cut my ads out now, the way I build my stuff for about 40 episodes back now, which is like a month. but I haven't figured out like the technicals of it. And then it just struck me like 2 days ago that I was like, rather than A, trying to figure out all the work myself, or B, trying to hire somebody else to do it, why don't I offer to somebody that I'll split the sats with automatically, like just in the feed, with somebody who could work out all the publishing side of it. And so just through the idea and the audio knots, and we might have some like somebody who was working in broadcasting. She was like, "Oh, I'd love to take a hand at it and just split sats with you or whatever." And I could publish it. I'll cut everything out. You know, I've worked in broadcasting, so I know all the ins and outs of it. And so like I might actually be able to get it done without having to do any work. And like if it provides that value, people like the ad-free version, and I got something to show on the show. I gotta be like, guys, go do the ad-free version. It's like 50 cents an episode, right? Do 9 sats. Like,
Yeah.
What is that?
The other thing, it's so incredible. The other thing, like Marty and NVK were in the thing talking about, or in Sphinx talking about, like we can do Clubhouse in here. Like we could do Clubhouse style rooms in here. We could do. I mean, they hopped on like a just like an audio call. Like whoever was in there that wanted to, they just hopped on. They said, I mean, Paul was just basically saying you can customize within Sphinx. You can customize this and add anything you want to. Just depending on what your needs are. Like in the Tales from the Crypt little thing, I just made like a couple. I hopped in Looka.com and made a couple logos or made us a couple things. Just little, like I made one that was like Clark Moody as my homeboy or something like that. And just like threw it up in there and, put, 200 sats on it and somebody bought it, And so like, it's just stuff like that. You can just create things and just throw them in there. And then, if they add value to people, people are going to add them. It's just incredible. If you're a creative person, I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, okay, what can I do to be creative and add value to people? I mean, I can just imagine people, if you're, I was thinking through, I mean, like somebody like Breedlove, who's popping out articles. I mean, I'll show his little thing. He's got this Telegram group where he's helping, he's starting to write his next book. And you can pay I think it's like $3 a month to be in this Telegram group, and he gives you like advanced things. But I was just sitting there, I was thinking for his benefit, I'm like, man, he just needs to get a Sphinx chat, throw this in there, and then he can be monetizing the development of the book in addition to, just getting feedback from people. So it's just such a cool, the possibilities are just so interesting. I just love the idea of like no rent seeking, it just, if somebody's adding value and you want to, again, like nobody's forcing you to pay a certain amount, but like, if you want to, as you have the ability to do so, being willing to pay a little bit more, it's just such a cool model.
I love it. Yeah, 100%. And Will, have you dabbled in any Lightning yet, or are you just kind of getting around regular wallets so far? Where are you at?
Yeah, man, to be honest, I really haven't checked out any of that. I think it's really interesting. I remember Preston did a podcast with Jack Mallers, and I was like, whoa, this is going to change a lot. But to be honest, I have a node, but I haven't gotten around to mess around with Lightning, but I will.
I think go ahead. If you're just getting started, maybe try something like Breeze, Breez, or Phoenix if you're on Android, or even like Moon Wallet, MUUN. All of those are like pretty easy, like simple onboarding. Your phone runs a Lightning node. It's cool to use and just play around. And it also, if you are moving money around, even just friend to friend, then you're not paying massive on-chain fees when you start to do that. So yeah, for me, it's been a lifesaver. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's important as well, as we transfer from the store of value to a medium of exchange. It's going to be very important to see these developments in Lightning.
Yeah. 100%. Awesome. All right. We are down to our last reason for being bullish. We got a double reason from Guy, really. Like, I feel like I got double bullish from all of those things. there's you know, a ton of people in the chat leaving messages. Everybody smash that like button, give this a share, and we're gonna jump to our last reason for being bullish. Kiss, take it away. What are you feeling this week?
So this this movement, this buildup of public sentiment kind of against Bitcoin, whether it's like Jay Powell talking about Bitcoin's like gold, and you know it's highly speculative because obviously they don't think much of gold, or they're also talking about you know they don't like the privacy aspect, and people can't have, you know, like Swiss banks, digital currencies can't be Swiss banks, and then the FATF, that new guidance or pseudo guidance, whatever it is. So all this stuff building up, you have all this energy FUD, and you know, kind of Bitcoin being this like evil energy, you know, killing the climate, killing planet Earth. We're seeing it, right? We're seeing as market cap goes up, as NGU technology continues to work, we're seeing it kind of the hate and the frustration with that, you know, people have that don't understand where it's coming from, being channeled, directed, you know, toward Bitcoin. And this makes me very bullish because I've always felt like we have to get to that point where they fight, you know, whether it's, you know, the sovereigns, the central banks. The central banks, I know they understand what this is, and these people are not stupid. You know, they are very calm and calculated in what they say. You know, they're like drones or like robots, but they know what's up. And we're getting into that phase, you know, whether the privacy wars or whatever, where we're all going to kind of be like tested, right? And like we actually have to stand. And that makes me very bullish because once we get through that phase, however it ends up playing out, I feel like that's when we're really going to start living in this hyper Bitcoinized world. And all this, you know, citadels and you know, this kind of utopia, and I'm using that word very loosely. Please, you know, don't run with that word, whatever you want to call it. That's where we're going to see that out picturing, you know, but we have to get through this phase where this idea that the central bank is omnipotent and can rule our planet, like that emperor having, you know, that idea, that deification of them needs to die. They need to die. Now that doesn't mean fiat money collapses, but it's just like this perceptual filter of them being omnipotent needs to be cleansed from the global, you know, gestalt.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there, and I mean the same kind of stuff with, and I just see it in the chat, somebody bringing up World Economic Forum and those types of individuals. You know, what was the tagline? The you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yeah.
And
it's not conspiracy. Like they're telling you exactly what they want to do, and you go back and you read stuff like the Jekyll Island book, whatever, I can't remember the title of it. The Creature from Jekyll Island, right? It's not like they're putting it in our faces now. Yeah. Everything that people have, like, oh, conspiracy this, conspiracy that. People can't, like, that, you know, it's not organized, whatever. Like, it's in your face. So now what? You know, like, the cognitive dissonance is coming to a head, and people have to kind of look at the reality of what's going on, and however deep or to whatever degree you want to face that, like, push is coming to shove, and either you wake up or you're going to feel the pain, right? Your purchasing power is going to leave you behind. Like, it's going to get sucked through the straw. What is the quote from There Will Be Blood? Like like, I'm going to take my straw and I'm going to suck your milkshake, or I don't know.
Your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I took it up.
Exactly. Like they can't keep doing that to everybody
Yeah.
on the planet.
Yeah, this is very akin to the ideas in the fourth turning, where they talk about basically we're in that fourth turning now, where old institutions effectively get torn down, and I see that as the money. The people, the central banks that rule, the ruling class that get to dictate where they siphon people's wealth to, get torn down. And in the awakening, you have like this era, this high for a new society to come forth. And if the timing from the last awakening to the new one is somewhat accurate, that puts us at some point later this decade, that kind of hitting that peak and moving into our new awakening phase. And I honestly think that is Bitcoin, and I think that the old guard that gets dismantled is fiat currency and central banking. I think it's just time.
It's something that Will mentioned. I think it was Will mentioned at the article about the Renaissance. I mean, just like the printing press was like the death knell, was the beginning of the end for these centralized, ossified institutions like the Catholic Church. And that, I mean, it was the death knell for them. Like as soon as dissent was able to be published on a wide basis, it was the beginning of the end for them. And so I just think Bitcoin is the exact same thing for this institution that is central banking, that is ossified and centralized. And I mean, just it's not benefiting normal people. It's benefiting a very small group of people. And it's time for it to die. and the sooner it happens, the better we'll all be. And so I just think, again, it's not even just the system itself. Like all of the people who are involved are old. Like these are all old people who, again, like you can, I mean, if we don't have to go in deep into this, but you can argue that a lot of the response to the COVID, like with the lockdowns and stuff, is because the people who are most threatened by the disease were older people. And so like all of the politicians are, were petrified that they're going to get it and die. And so it makes sense that they would take more drastic measures than if, they were younger politicians. So again, just the incentive structure is completely perverse. And yeah, I just think it's again, from my perspective, again, like this is not everyone's perspective. Like I think there's somebody governing this whole thing and moving. I think we're going to a certain place. There's somebody. The most important thing in the world are people, and so like it, I see this thing like the current situation, the current system is anti-people to the core, and so this thing can't last forever. It's doomed to fail, and I just see Bitcoin as as part of what's going to bring about this more natural, more sustainable existence. And I just think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it is a lot of fun, just the process of doing that. You have people who are learning to stand up for just there's more important things than making money. There's more important things than just doing things that are easy and getting approval of people. I mean, I just see, again, it's part of what I love about Bitcoiners. Just there's this attitude of like, this is wrong. This is insane. I don't care how much you tell me that this is okay. Like I'm humbling myself to look at history, and I see this is insane. There's no historical precedent to continue down this path and everything being okay. It's not going to happen. And so again, we have humility and reality on our side, and so we can go triumphantly, down the road and look all of these, big central bankers in their faces who look all impressive, but who are just full of hot air, and we can just say, hey, like you're going to lose either when you die or when this system comes crashing down. So I just think we can have a lot of confidence in that, in those things. So. Yeah,
absolutely. I want to get Will's take on this, on the I guess Kiss's, what would you say, then they fight you phase of the stages of mourning, or whatever it is, but people always go about, and then they fight you and then you win. Will, you're coming at it almost, you were alluding to it earlier, it's almost like it's not even on your front, you're not even fighting, it's just like an open option for you, and you're like, well, I mean, I'll take the better one, obviously. Like in your head, is it, are you fighting to dismantle something, or is it just like, hey, I'm just doing this?
Yeah, you know, the way I see it is it's almost like when you think about, you have different planets or different like entities out in space, right? And they all have different gravitational poles. And when you think about the Bitcoin network effect, it's the gravitational pull of the Bitcoin network is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. And if you think about it like a black hole, we're approaching, I guess you could say, the event horizon, the point of a black hole where you know, not even light can exit. And I think we're kind of approaching that point of it. And so I look at it, rather than we're taking away from the central bank system necessarily, it's this organic growing thing, and everything is just getting sucked into this thing that's organically growing itself, if that makes sense. And in regards to, like, first they laugh at you, then they fight at you, that thing. I think we're obviously in that phase where they're starting to fight, but I don't think the central banks are stupid. I think, you know, at the end of the day, their job is to keep stability in the markets, and they understand what's going on. And I think they fully know that this thing is not going to go away. And to go off of what something Guy said earlier, you know, the fiat currency meltdown that we're having, you know, in Weimar, Germany. Okay, this is an example. In Weimar, Germany, when the currency meltdown, a lot of merchants, they could just transfer over their accounting to a US dollar based system, and they could just step out of it. But like I said way earlier, that it's every single currency that is going through this simultaneously. So Bitcoin is the only escape valve that there is. And so there's that aspect to it. So there's not really any country that people can step out to. And so I see the whole game theory of everything playing out. We're past the point of the critical threshold, if you will, in terms of network effects. And I actually DM'd Jeff Booth the other day, and I was like, because he knows network effects better than almost anybody. And I was like, hey, do you think we're like past that tipping point? And he was like, absolutely. And it's at the point where it's like, if you understand network effects, this thing, Bitcoin's already won at this point. Like the entrenchment into now, they could have maybe shut it down like 5-6 years ago. And Michael Saylor always gets at this as well. It's like Bitcoin is so battle hardened, and it's so now at this point entrenched into the financial system. And there's so many high net worth individuals and now institutions. Tesla is probably the most predominant, that there's no way that you can really unravel this thing, in my opinion. And another thing is, like, people in the United States don't realize, because we have somewhat of a stable currency. Like, we're not going to go to Walmart tomorrow and then everything's going to be double in value, right? And so in that sense, like, I obviously the currency isn't stable, but in that sense, like, overseas in these places like Venezuela, you know, you're looking at, you know, they're waking up sometimes and stuff is up 20% in value. Like, so for them, the volatility of Bitcoin in the short term isn't a problem, because it's stable compared to their currency. So they've already adopted, they're way ahead of everybody else. And so it's like, let's say the United States comes out tomorrow and says, okay, they're putting in some kind of law to ban Bitcoin, or whatever you want to call it. I don't really think there's any law that you could ban Bitcoin, but let's just say that they try to do something like that. They say they're going to throw everybody in jail. It really doesn't matter, because it's global. So there's all these other places in the world. And honestly, all it takes is one central bank to step in and say, hey, we're taking a 5% position in this thing. And then it's all over at that point. It's over. It just takes.
It immediately becomes a race.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And on the point of volatility, sorry, there's this great quote that I love by Timur Azari. He wrote a piece on Bitcoin Magazine about what was going on in Lebanon, and his little headline, like halfway down the article or whatever, was a volatile currency for volatile times, and he was talking about how like the instability of the fiat system, the quote unquote price volatility of Bitcoin is actually preferable to the systemic risk that has grown so great in the only alternative, but I just thought that was a great quote, and I wanted to add that.
It's also, if you're gonna mention the volatility, it's like you're mentioning night without mentioning day, right? Like people like to throw in, Bitcoin's volatile. Yeah, you're getting 200% risk adjusted returns every year. Like, what do you mean?
I doubled my money and then lost 20% of it. I'm so upset.
It's the worst argument. That is, I mean, in my opinion, that's worse than the government's going to ban it argument. And all I mean, that one's just.
Yeah, talking about the thing as far as like if when one of these banks takes a 5% position, it's hilarious you say that, guy, because literally I was driving home to get to hop on this call, and I hopped in Clubhouse, and as I'm in there, I'm in British Hodl's room, and an SVP of Morgan Stanley hops in there, and they bring him up on stage, and they start just asking him questions about Morgan Stanley and Bitcoin. And so basically he just starts bragging about how bullish Morgan Stanley is, and about how they have like 5 trillion under management, and how they have so many customers who are reaching out. And so everyone just like started getting, the fervor of the room was like starting to just rise. And people were asking questions. Yeah, seriously.
Oh my God, I'm so bullish.
So Hodl's like asking him, how much do you think this is going to affect Bitcoin's price? And how much, what kind of percentage, or what kind of percentage of people are gonna? He's asking him all these questions, and the guy was basically like, "I gotta go," and it was like somebody heard him talking and was like, "No, get out of here! Like you can't use numbers," And so just that kind of thing. If you're talking, like they were talking about, there's like for them, I think they capped it at like 2%. Like their customers can only put like up to 2% of their net worth into Bitcoin. But then somebody else said like as soon as an ETF comes out, then like those caps go out the window, and then you're throwing, like 5-10% in there, and 5 or 10% of 5 trillion is, humongous numbers. And it's just mind blowing, the scale and how quickly things move, once you get that level of money involved.
I hadn't heard that, but that's awesome. I wish I would have been in that room. Damn, gotta get on Clubhouse more, as if I have extra time to spare.
I was about to say, I need to waste another 8 hours on Clubhouse. And, I'll just follow Jim. I'll just follow Bush, and we'll be good.
But guys, we ran super long. I know that you guys probably have stuff to do. I definitely do as well. So I'm going to start rounding it out here. Guys, I had an awesome chat with you. Again, always the best part of the end of my week, to sit down and be bullish with a bunch of awesome Bitcoiners. So I'm going to send it down the line one last time. If you guys can maybe just drop again who you are and where people can find you, whether it be like a Twitter handle, or like anything that you've done, that website, anything like that, book, all of that. So Will, take it away.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on. This was an awesome conversation. It was nice to meet you guys. My Twitter is W Clemente, which is CLEMENTEIII. I'm the third. And then you can also look up on Bitcoin Magazine. You can just type my name in and find some of the articles that I put together. Awesome.
And let's head over to Jam.
Yep, my name is Jordan Bush. You can find me on Twitter at JMBushWrites, WRITES. And then like I said, I contributed to Thank God for Bitcoin, the creation, corruption, and redemption of money. We actually just today, it's so appropriate, I'm on here with Guy the day that the Audible version of our book releases. So you can go get that on Amazon Audible. Then I guess it was last week or a week and a half ago, we did a hardcover version as well. So the next thing, Jimmy posted this the other day, Jimmy Song, that we're going to be doing a book release party in Austin on, let's see, it is April 7th. So if you guys are going to be in town in Austin, we'd love to see you at Fogo de Chao. We're going to do like a dinner there. So if you're interested, we'd love to see you.
Awesome. Guy, you go.
Yo. If you want to follow me, I'm at the Crypto Economy and at Bitcoin Audible on Twitter. And I got the Bitcoin Audible podcast, 600 and I don't know how many episodes now. And basically any possible work you could think of that you wanted to read in Bitcoin, in the Bitcoin space, particularly all the like essentials and prerequisites. I've probably got it in audio, like 98% there. And I got one of Will's recent ones actually on there too. And probably another one. I know I got another one in the list. So maybe another one of those soon. Oh, and actually on that note, you mentioned fourth turning. After, if anybody's reading the book, after you read the book, you should definitely listen to and or read Brandon Quittem's Bitcoin in the Rhythms of History, which is a really great piece, just taking that whole thesis and applying it to the shift that we're seeing in Bitcoin and what the generational story tells in that context. So it's a really fascinating piece.
I love that. Yeah, it's great. It's a solid piece. Yeah.
So that's me, Bitcoin Audible, Crypto Economy.
Awesome. And to round it out, we will go to, as coined by the chat, that abnormal guy wearing a mask. LOL. Kiss, take it away.
You can keepitsimplebitcoin.com. All the guides are there. At Kiss Bitcoin on Twitter. Thanks for having me. I love having these conversations. And if anybody has any requests on guides, just hit me up on Twitter, email me, whatever you want. If you need any help, hit me up. Just here to be of service. Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
I'll vouch for the mask in saying that he's the only guy on stage who has actual OPSEC. The rest of us are super screwed.
I'm so screwed
during this fourth
so
turning. So he's the one that's best off out of all of us. Anyways, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to cut your audio and video, but if you want to say a quick goodbye afterwards, you can stick around. And everybody watching, thank you so much for being here. Again, always the best part of my Friday, but please do hit like, subscribe, and share. All of those things help get this content out to even more people. And I love having you here. And thanks for everybody being in the chat. If you want to help with the show in another way, you can hit up the sponsors I mentioned previously down below. That was LEDN, Kobo, Bitrefill, and the guys over at privacypros.io for the BillFodl to back up your wallets. And if you really liked what you saw, we were talking all about Lightning today. You can always drop me a Bitcoin Lightning Network tip, or you can drop me some birthday sats if you so choose at my tippin.me page. That is tippin.me/@BTC sessions. With that, I am out. Have yourselves a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, wherever you may be, and I'll see you guys next time for your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.